Hello, my name is Leah Shapiro, and I am Policy Counsel at the David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy at the Fortune Society. Welcome to Both Sides of the Bars, a discussion-driven show that examines the legal system from various perspectives, including people most impacted by the criminal legal system. We discuss critical questions about how the current system works, its intersections with social justice, and we highlight the efforts that are being made to improve the lives of everyone affected. We ask you, the viewers, to spread the word about both sides of the bars and share your comments with us on Twitter at TheFortuneSOC. Today's show is entitled Women Building Power in Community. We are here to celebrate leaders during Women's History Month, but noting that, like many other months that get celebrated once a year, this should be something, like all the other issues, that we think about and discuss all year long. It is my great honor to introduce two incredible women whom I've had the privilege of working with on multiple advocacy campaigns in our mutual hometown of New York City and at the state level in New York, Judith Clark and Leah Faria. I'll just briefly introduce them, and then they will share more. Judith Clark is the community justice advocate at Our Children, a nonprofit in New York City that provides a range of services and supports to women and gender nonconforming people and their families in 2 New York State prisons and in our city jail, as well as housing and reentry and other services to them when they are leaving incarceration. During her own time in prison, Judith worked with others to create a myriad of community-based programs. She is also an advisor and consultant on numerous projects and to numerous organizations, as well as a published poet and author. Leah Faria is the Director of Community Liaisons and Organizing at the Women's Community Justice Association, another New York City nonprofit, dedicated to improving the lives of women and gender-expansive New Yorkers affected by mass incarceration. Leah is a community organizer and mother who was formerly incarcerated. She is a survivor of domestic and state violence, as well as a leader of the Justice for Women Task Force, where she works to amplify the voices and empower women incarcerated at Rikers Island here in New York City. Welcome to you both. It is such a privilege and honor to be here with you. And before we jump into our full conversation, it'd be wonderful if each of you could give us a little bit more information about the organizations you work for, the roles that you currently hold, and how you came to be in those roles. So Leah, if it's okay, let's start with you.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here. And I work for the Women's Community Justice Association, where I am the director of community liaisons and organizing. And the Women's Community Justice Association is the lead organization that leads the campaign for women and the gender expansive population at Rosie's, which is also the nickname for the Rosamund Singer Center, which is the only female facility that's on the compound of Rikers Island. And in my role, I have a Rikers initiative where I go in and I advocate with the women and the gender expansive population, as well as with their families, because we all know that it's not just the person that's detained doing time, it's also the family members and the loved ones. We also have a campaign. Our campaign is hashtag Beyond Rosies, and it's just that. You know, there's always life beyond being detained or incarcerated, and we need to have a certain quality of life when we re-enter society. So we advocate for those resources, for that trauma-informed care, for that mental health treatment, and just to have that overall housing, and just overall resources that somebody needs. The women have very unique needs, and it's very important that those needs are met so that they can be empowered within the community.
Thank you, Leah. And I want to come back to some of the things you said there about women's unique needs. But Judy, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your organization and the role you play there and how you came to be there.
Our Children, I first started actually working with Our Children when I was incarcerated. I spent 38 years in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. Leah and I were together there. And I worked on the nursery there and helped to build the Children's Center. And about 10 years before I left, Our Children became the community-based organization in charge of that work. So I already had a relationship to it. And when I got out of prison, Our Children was one of the first places that welcomed me actually had a welcoming celebration, because so many women that I had done time with are part of the Our Children community, live in our houses, both our um, the housing that people
Mhm.
live in when they first get out, and also permanent housing that we've developed that people are able to live in. And so for me, I came here originally just because I needed to stay connected to where I had spent a good portion of my life, and over time realized that it was the place that I wanted to work. And when I first came, I thought I wanted to do participatory research, which I had done a lot of inside. And
Mhm.
but more and more as I stayed here, I started to do both peer advocacy and mentoring with women who were coming out after me. And then felt very strongly that my own experience and the experience of this community led led us to needing to be part of the advocacy efforts
Mhm.
in changing lots of policies, which we can talk more about. So when our new executive director took over, Alethea Taylor, about a year
Yeah.
or so ago, she appointed me as the community justice advocate.
Wonderful. And you've said the word community. It's not just in your title, Judy, but you've said the word community. And you talked about coming home and needing to be in the community. And Leah, you were speaking about women's unique needs. And I'm thinking about, what is this need that women have for community, and what is the power in that both of you clearly have drawn on? Either one of you who'd like to begin.
Go ahead,
Um,
Judy.
I, I think when I was inside, we always tried to address problems that we faced as individuals by looking at the way that those problems were connected to larger social problems, that they were not just
Mhm.
our personal problems, but they were part of the structure that we were facing, as well as what we brought to it and the issues that we had to address individually. And that the best way for us to do that was to come together. And prison is not a place that anyone wants to be. It's oppressive in a lot of profound ways, but we who spent significant time there also realized that it was up to us to both address our own need for change, take responsibility for the harms we had caused, and begin to live out a different way of being, which was about a pro-social, community-oriented way. So that's always been how we try to look at every problem we addressed, from the AIDS crisis to our need
Mhm.
to build relationships to our children, to building college programs. And so the same thing is true about our children on the outside, is that while it provides services like housing and work readiness, it does so in community. People live in community when they first come out. People are challenged to see themselves as part of a larger community, and we also have a relationship to the larger community and neighborhood that our houses are in, so that to us it's always rooted in that sense that we can't get anything done alone. We can only get it
Mm.
done with each other.
Leah, did you want to add anything to that about the notion of and the power of community?
Well, I honestly feel like it's no way to mention community without mentioning a woman, right? Or
Mm.
those that identify as women, because women are the nurturers, right? The backbones of society. And so it's like natural to think of community and to think about, coming together. And, for me, what I do in as being like a big advocate for community is because, it's so many things that weren't there, when I had to go through my process of, my journey of my incarceration, and what I acquired, throughout the time. Like with Judy was one of my mentors, right? And that helped create community. And I think that it's always strength in numbers. And for far too long, women have been silenced, right? And so I think that, with community and us coming together as a community, we finally have a seat at the table, and we're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. So I think
Right.
that it's a strong sense of of community when you just think about, you know, women in general and those that identify as women, and just the love that is needed in a community and that we could provide. So it just, one goes hand in hand with the other.
What I find so interesting in what you're saying too, Leah, is when you talk about women being the nurturers, and I saw Judy nodding with that and being the back. You know, these are concepts that have historically actually been used to oppress women, right? And to be provided as reasons why women can't hold positions of leadership or shouldn't, right? Because we're too invested in and driven by the emotional and by nurturing. But the way you two are talking about it, that's about building power, which I find so interesting. Which also makes me think about the term leadership, which we have talked about before, right? And whether that's a term that you embrace, or do you, or how do you feel about that? What does leadership mean to you? And do you see yourselves as leaders? Because many people, including me, but many people do. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
I think oh, go ahead, Judy. You want to
No,
go,
you go.
Judy?
No, you
I
go.
mean, I don't, like you said it, Lily. Other people see me, or see us as leaders, but I see myself as an advocate. You know, I see myself as somebody that's gonna fight for what's right until we get it right. You know, so it's like and in the whole makeup of it, yes, you can say that I'm a leader, right? Because I'm gonna take the lead and I'm gonna bring those along so that we could get the job done and we can build that community that's so needed, right? But I really see myself as an advocate because I had to first start to work with myself. So once I was able to work through my own trauma, my own obstacles, I was able to advocate and use my personal experiences to be able to support and to be that walking resource for so many other people. So I just think that I'm an advocate, and I think I'm going to always be an advocate because, you know, I don't think that we're ever going to get to where we really want it to be. So until we get there, I have to keep fighting, and I'm going to fight until, you know, I'm no longer here. But I see myself as an advocate because I'm so passionate about, you know, helping people and just being that, you know, that support, that resource, that love. You know, we have so much of that lacking in today's society, and, you know, we need to bring that back. But, you know, I'm grateful that people see me as a leader, but I see myself as an advocate, as a walking resource, and I like to follow. I want to follow in the steps of people like Judy, right? Who was there and who was there to guide me when I didn't have guidance, when I didn't know that I was going to be able to make it through my time. So, you know, and those experiences help me help somebody else. So it's always about paying it forward.
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree with that, and I think that it has to do with being women. I think that that's part of it. I think the model. I mean, you know, when I had to look back at my own participation in a crime that where people died, part of what I had to look at was coming from a certain mold and model that saw strength in the ability to like fight and saw leadership as a hierarchy. And I think that I had to see my and sort of be concerned about my own weakness as a woman. And I think that my own evolution had to do with seeing that the very qualities that we possess, not just as women, but as people who care for each other and care for the next generation and the generation behind us, are the qualities that we need to bring to what we're trying to bring forth. And my models of that kind of leadership came from the Black movement, came from people like Ella Baker, who always talked about collective leadership. You know, that there's not this singular heroic person that's going to be the one that's going to make it happen, but that by building that collectivity, we build that strength that brings in all the resources of the community. That was always my roots, and that's sort of what I came back to when I did the work in the prison. And the only other thing I'd say about that is that it you know, to at our children, like we have generations, we have all these children, and their mothers are their leaders. their mothers are their
Right.
role models. That's how we think of, and the children also see them. We have the older children helping the younger children. All of that is
Right.
about that sense of like being communal and engaged in that kind of way.
And also, I think invoking Ella Baker, who was such a champion of youth and the power of youth, right? And that intergenerational
Yep.
connectivity and mutual support, I think it's just beautiful. It makes so much sense here. And Judy, I'm curious, when you were talking about a lot of this work that you started while in prison, how did you build leadership, collective power within a system, literally, that is all about erasing individuality and all about maintaining control and and controlling all aspects of one's life, including interaction. So how can you speak a little bit to that?
I'd say two things. One is that for the first 20 years that I was in Bedford, we had a administration that actually recognized, one, that women are different than men and have different needs when they're inside, and two, that the prison can function better to the extent that everyone has some way of buying into making things work. And so we were in a position of being able to um, uh, go to the administration and say, there are these issues. We think they're important to us. We think they're important to you. Can we do work together on it? And that allowed for a cooperative relationship around some of the key things that we did. I think, and I think that got whittled away over the years that I was inside. I think it's much more of a um, atomized situation now. But I think that um, what we gained from that and the programs we were able to build were able to sustain themselves. And one of them is the Children's Center, which I think is
Mhm.
recognized. It couldn't, I mean, every prison, quiet as it's kept, only functions because the people inside help to make our lives better inside, and therefore help to make the prison function, whether people
Right.
are feeding each other or making the food or doing the laundry
Right.
or helping each other in a million ways. And the only thing we did is we pointed that out. You're doing this, and in you doing this, you are helping others, and we want to help you help others. And that we created that ethos for each other and really instilled it in each other.
Right. That caring for each other when sick. Right. That was a big
Yes.
part of, right.
Yep. And I think I'll just say about that it also meant that, you know, in the prison starts its reentry program 2 months before you're going to get out. But we started our
Mhm.
reentry program the minute we were there, because we
Mm,
said if we become good citizens to each other in here, then we can become resources to our communities when we leave. And that was our hope. And what's amazing is how many of us have come out and are involved in trying to make things better. And that
right.
involvement is helping us build a different form of community safety. That's community safety based in creating thriving communities.
That's right. Leah, did you want to add anything to that?
And that's community, Judy.
Yes.
um, I think that when I think about like how I was able to like kind of work through, what I was going through, I had to really kind of go back to the I. I had to focus on myself first because I knew I couldn't be good to anybody else unless I was good to myself. So I had to work through that first. And in doing that, I was able to like create programs, facilitate programs, and I saw the need. I don't know where it came from, but I just ended up being a person to care for others more than I cared for myself. Like I kind of took it outside of myself and I thought about, my peers who had children that were in the foster system. I thought about my peers that, didn't even have family. And it motivated me to extend myself to my community and to just like put them before myself because I think like from the time of my incarceration, I've always tried to find some kind of way to kind of make it right. I
Mm,
knew that I couldn't rewind time and change what transpired, But I wanted to make it right. And I realized the one way that I could make it right was for one to become my best self. And in becoming my best self, it was to extend myself to others. And so that's why I got to backpedal to me being an advocate, because that's how I saw myself, and regardless to what I may have been going through, what, not hearing from my own family, it was so important to me for me to be there for others, and it was like no matter what it was. And to this day, so that it was like a no-brainer, the kind of work that I was going to come home and do,
Mhm.
because that's just who I became, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So, I think that this is community, and it starts with self, and then it evolves into, bringing others in, and carrying them on your back. Judy, I might be heavier than Judy. Judy carried me on her back. So I have some weight to me now. I could carry others on my back, and that's what it's about for me.
Another, I saw these talk about working on yourself so that you can be connected, so that you can help others, right? Not working on yourself so then you could then get out in front is so interesting and all in keeping with everything you've both been saying. And it brought me back to, Judy, your version of a famous quote that you provided when we were talking in preparation for this conversation. You said, "They tried to crush us, but we became seeds." And I just love that. And could you elaborate on that a little bit?
I mean, I think that prison, mass incarceration is this enormous part of the structure of our culture, and it's a deadly part of our culture because it's rooted not in holding people accountable so that they can get better and do better, but punishment and retribution. And punishment and retribution only creates more immiseration, and as
Mhm.
opposed to taking responsibility. And I think that even in that system, though, our own spirits led us to want to, in fact, take accountability. And if we couldn't
Mhm.
do it in the context of what the culture of the prison was, we were going to do it. And people do that in prisons all over. People rise above that negativity to say, I need to take responsibility. I need to look at myself. I need to change how my relationship to people inside, and who I want to be, how I want to be with people, and who I want to be when I get out. And that's the way in which, they tried to crush us, but we became seeds. And I think we became seeds to all sorts of programs while we were inside, and to a lot of the work that we get out. I mean, the other, I think you were with us, Lily, when we went to Albany to advocate for two bills that would change the parole system in New York. As it is now, people are doing enormously long time,
Yes,
and
they are.
people are going to parole and being hit for the nature of their crimes, no matter how long ago those crimes were.
Right.
And so that we have a third of the population in the prisons are elderly. And when we're promoting two bills. One would change would give access to elderly people to go to parole, and the other would change the way that parole decides based in real community safety and not the past. But when we got there, it was a mobilization. 500 people were there, and we saw so many people that we knew from Bedford, and we came from
Wow.
all over the state, and the women were so happy to see each other. And there were the seeds, and there we
Right.
were planted, doing something that
Right.
was about saying, we know that who we left behind, and this isn't just about us. We need to pull those people out too. We need to look backwards and look forward at the same time.
Beautiful to get to see that growth, right,
Yeah,
from the seeds.
it's
I
really.
can't believe how much time has passed because, as always, I could spend much more time with the two of you. But being mindful of time, I just want to give one last question for each of you to answer as briefly as you can, which I know can be hard. And Leah, we'll start with you, which is, what advice would you give to other women who want to do this kind of work in the field, either while they're incarcerated or when they come home? What advice would you give them?
Just to piggyback a little off of what Judy said, like the system doesn't rehabilitate people, people rehabilitate people. And I just want them to know that never to give up, because we're out here being the boots on the ground to help them, you know, on the inside. We are the voices, the legs, the arms, the face, the ears, the eyes for the women and the gender expansive population on the inside. And I just want them to know to just keep thriving, to be that resource. That I want it to be each one teach one, each one reach one, you know, and I want them to just keep going.
Beautiful. Judy, how about you? Any brief advice?
I think that when we get out, there can be a sense of isolation and dislocation, and seek out resources, seek out programs, seek out support. No one can do this alone. No one should try to do this alone. And you will find opportunities to use your voice and learn to use it, not just as kind of being the person that has to spill their story all the time, but that we have expertise, that our experience has taught us things, and that those lessons are lessons that we can share and can help shape more positive policy when it comes to the legal system, the criminal legal system. So have
Thank you.
faith.
Have faith and thrive. Wonderful, wonderful words of advice from two wonderful women, Leah Faria and Judy Clark. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your expertise, your wisdom. And I thank you, the viewers, for joining us for this very thought-provoking and inspiring discussion. And on behalf of the Fortune Society, we also thank you for tuning in to Both Sides of the Bars. If you're interested in finding out more about the Fortune Society, please check us out on the web at fortunesociety.org. That's fortunesociety.org. This is Lily Shapiro, and I appreciate you joining us as we critically look at both sides of the bars.